Ask open-ended questions. Great parents ask, not how did you play today? Bad. They ask open-ended questions, get the child to talk, and the parents really listen to the child rather than parents often speak for their child. I've had a lot of lessons where the parents are doing all the talking and the child's just, So that child's not really getting that experience of self-autonomy, if that's the right way to put it, problem solving, just standing up for themselves.
Welcome to The Golf Parent, where you get access to the best minds in junior golf. Cheryl, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Ryan. I look forward to it.
Me as well. So let's start. I mean, you've got so much experience, not only coaching, not only playing yourself, but also coaching high-level elite junior golfers. And I've got a whole slew of questions here to ask you. But I think maybe the best place to start is we were talking off air a little bit about kind of like a predefined junior golf track that, seems to be a template of an effective way to kind of move a potential junior golfer or an athlete along certain ages and stages, I guess, of their development. Maybe can you talk a little bit about what that track is and what we as parents need to know?
Well, you being from Canada, right?
Guilty.
Originally.
Yep.
Have you ever heard of the long-term athletic development plan?
I'm starting to hear it more and more in these conversations. I am, but I think our audience may not be fully aware of it.
Well, back in the day, Canada was concerned about their population being a little bit obese. So they put together this program that would help the people to be more active in their lives. And then in 2006, they actually came up with the long-term player development plan specifically for golf. That's the first plan that I've ever seen laid out. This is what you need to be doing at this age to this age, all the way up until like you're 18 years old. Then the American Development Model came out with a plan, the ADM, which is very similar, but they have their own, recommendations, which are great. I would highly recommend anyone watching this podcast go to the ADM website. It's laid out what your kids should be doing at each age. And what's really exciting now is the United States Golf Association, USGA, is getting involved, and they are literally making a blueprint of not only where like your child should be, but they're going to put like benchmarks. This is what your child should be able to do if they're at the state level, if they're at the national level, and then on to like professional level. So that's in the works. It's going to be great.
That's helpful.
But for the parents that are watching now, Henry Brunton from Canada, he laid out a very easy plan for me. And this is what I preach to all the parents. There's 3 categories. Number 1 is the sampling years. So basically when your kids are, ages 3 to maybe about 11, 12, you want them sampling every sport possible, see what they like, and just try everything. It's going to make them a well-rounded athlete. I know Jack Nicklaus played baseball, football. Annika Sorenstam played tennis as a skier. So a lot of these great golfers have been great athletes. And then when you're around 11 to maybe 15, I think he called it the specializing years. So you narrow it down to like 2 sports. And then finally, from 16 and on, you got to be like Olympic style training. And he called it the investment years, basically because those are the investment years for parents. You got to be prepared to pay for tournaments that are out of the state, equipment, instruction. So it can add up in those years.
So that middle period where you're specializing into two sports, are those complementary sports or are they balancing out sports? So in other words, would one be like hand-eye and one would be foot, like soccer and golf? Or would they be complementary, like a racket sport, something that's hand-eye and golf as well?
Ooh, good question. I would highly recommend complementary, but tennis goes really well for the golf swing. But I love kids that play basketball too, because you get those fast twitch muscles and they're getting speed. And also they're part of a team. I think it's important to be part of a team too, environment. You learn so much through sports and team environments in golf. Although we have the PGA Junior Leagues now where kids are on a team, it's mainly an individual sport. So I think it's nice to have that relationship with other kids when they're in that age bracket.
Yeah, that often is like as a parent, myself trying to figure out that you really do want that camaraderie, right? Like you don't want them to be kind of the strange kid that's only good. Because I've met some of these guys growing up, like my buddies that played either hockey or these team sports. They can get along with everybody. Like they've got that kind of I guess that personality or that ability to galvanize a room or get along as teammates. Then I've got a couple other buddies that only played high level individual sports, a little bit more standoffish, a little bit more like strange. And so I think for the emotional, well rounded social skills, the team sports are super important.
And there's always outliers, right? So you could have a thoroughbred golfer like Tiger. But Tiger was a great athlete too. I mean, he could have been a world class sprinter, I believe, right? Really fast. But you get these thoroughbreds, they want to take off, like Lydia Ko. I mean, she won a professional event at age 15. So obviously, she didn't take that route, but it's the route that most should take, I think.
Yeah, and something that I'm learning that I didn't realize as well is that there is a almost trying to time the peak of the development. And so like what I'm hearing is that for boys it's around almost 24 where they're actually peaking. And so to have them peak too early, and we've all, heard those cautionary tales where somebody, is just exceptional and burns brightly very, very young, but then kind of burns out and leaves the sport or just, has a fall from grace, so to speak. Um,
Early to rise, early to rot.
Exactly. Exactly. So are you
Yeah.
seeing that as well, where it's almost like hey, it's taken a little bit slow, knowing that nobody ever, I guess, those prodigies that were winning the tournaments at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But for the most part, it's more about the long kind of term focus of making sure that the child is peaking at the right time when they need to peak.
Well, it's tough. I mean, some kids are really ignited early and they're going to peak early. So how do parents foster that, right? And nurture that. Um, Golf is one of these games too. You could have an early bloomer, you could have a late bloomer. So that's what's great about the game. I mean, Phil Mickelson won a major at age 50, and Jack Nicklaus the same at age 48 or 7. He won the Masters. So you just your point, I think, is that we want to make sure that those early bloomers, the Tigers, they don't they don't you know get injured or they don't burn out. I mean, I've had students of mine that have reached that burnout stage, unfortunately. And it's sad to see, but you know what? They've experienced that drive, that pursuit of excellence that they're carrying over into the next stage of their lives. So that's why it's important to really understand your son or daughter's values. What did they really want? Why did they want to play golf? And who would they be if they didn't play golf too? That's something parents have to explore.
So what
I think every
Yeah, I mean, all fantastic points. And what have you seen then? I mean, teaching just the number of juniors and high level juniors that you have, can you put your finger on like maybe if we could break it into a couple buckets, but like from a mental or like a mindset standpoint, from a physical standpoint, what is it that separates that high level junior from kind of their peers?
Ooh, grit. You know what the acronym for grit
I
is?
don't. I can't wait to hear it.
Greatness requires inner toughness. Um, I want to stay on that one point if you don't mind, because when I'm a late bloomer, and I had a friend, Heather Daly Donofrio. She played at Yale University. I played at Rutgers University, and we were terrible in college. Okay, we were lucky to break 80. And Heather told me, Cheryl, I'm going to go become a golf professional. And I shook my head like, what are you talking about? You can't even break 80. No, I'm going to go win on the tour one day. Like, okay, whatever. So anyhow, down the road, and she's a Yale graduate too, right?
So she had options.
Yeah, and I said I played with her a couple years later in the Massachusetts Open. We were roommates, and I beat her. And she's like still pursuing this dream of being an LPGA Tour player. And thank God I wasn't her coach because I certainly didn't believe in her ability, right? And she was only 5 foot tall.
Oh,
And a couple years later, she made the Futures Tour, which was one notch below the LPGA Tour. A couple years later, she made the LPGA Tour, and she won 2 times on the tour. And she won a tournament that I made the cut in. So it was really cool that I was there for that. That totally changed my whole perspective for coaching because you can't teach somebody grit. And that girl had the grit. I mean, she slept in her car. She didn't take a dime from her parents. She knew internally that she was going to succeed. Okay. And nobody was going to knock that out of her. So I think grit is number one. The kids, I think, that succeed are very self-motivated. They're ignited. They wake they wake their parents to get up out of bed and take them to practice. Um, I would say they're driven for perfection. They just drive themselves. They're perfectionists. They want to get better all the time, and they're not afraid to miss. Meaning, I think of Caitlin Clark, the great basketball player now. She's not afraid to miss because she knows she's going to make the next shot. And I feel like that's how the great junior golfers are.
I mean, each one of those four pillars, I think we can do an entire podcast on. So, okay, we lingered on grit a little bit, and that certainly seems to now the science is showing that grit or that perseverance is the number one indicator of success is like, can you just stick through a little bit longer than the next person? And that seems to be making all the difference. But like, how do we teach grit? I mean, as parents, we're always trying to, you know, it's interesting right now in this day and age because you've got the helicopter parents, you've got the bulldozer parents, and if we don't know the difference, I mean, I'm learning these terms, but bulldozer is just trying to like bulldoze every obstacle out of the way so that their child has the easiest kind of route through life, which obviously isn't going to be developing any sort of agency or an ability to actually overcome any obstacles. And then you've got the helicopter parents that's just always there, always just like around. There's no independence there. So we have this desire to kind of protect our children, but yet we understand that grit's the most important thing. So, I mean, is there a way that we can maybe even artificially foster this or encourage it somehow?
It's hard. There's actually a test, the grit test, to see if people instinctively have, I think you can Google it online, if they instinctively have this. I think the growth mindset kind of goes along with it. I think if you can educate and teach kids and parents that it's okay to fail, right? And to understand you're going to learn from the failure. It's going to motivate or help you to make some changes. And, you know, it's a long-term mastery game, right? So you can't worry if you make mistakes. I think that's the number one thing. And just help the kids to learn, support the kids to learn from their mistake. I don't think I answered your question too well. My mind's going off in a lot of directions with this
Well,
grit
I mean,
because
hey,
I
this is the holy grail right now. So I mean, it's. I don't think there is a right answer, and I think that everybody's still trying to figure that out. But would it be exposing them to adversity, like controlled adversity in tournaments, maybe early?
yeah, I'm thinking the kids have to have some emotional control before they're exposed to tournaments. I'm just thinking of Caitlin Clark real quick again because I remember this story. She was 5 years old, very young, right? And she was playing with the boys, and she couldn't figure out how to get around this one big boy. Okay, and she cried. So her dad was her coach early on. He benched her, and he told her, I will put you back in the game when you're ready. She stopped crying. She went back out in the court, and she figured out a way to get around that guy. So there was some assistance from the dad there that helped her to calm down and then use her problem solving abilities. And you can't access those when you're upset. And I think a lot of kids get frustrated and upset at golf. It's a hard game. But if they have those tools on how to deal with the failures, I think they get the grit. I think it helps.
At what age or emotional maturity level should we like, for example, I mean, again, golf's a tough game. So our child knocks the ball into maybe a really tough shot, and you just want to keep it fun for them. So you may, like, do a little Texas wedge or like a little foot wedge, and just kind of like, move it off into an easier shot for them, as opposed to saying, no, play it as it lie. Let's really see what you got here. Like, learn to just basically do those shots. Have you seen, is there kind of a sweet spot in either an emotional age or a physical age to be like, listen, now we're going to go from it being just like, just keep moving the ball, keep it fun, to like, let's actually learn how to hit these more difficult lie type shots?
Yeah, there's definitely a developmental age versus a chronological age, and everybody's a little different. You could have a kid that's acting like an 11-year-old and he's only 7 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that kid might have the maturity to handle a situation that's more challenging, right, than the 7-year-old. So that's where great coaching comes in, and great parenting is you got to know when to push your child, but you also have to know when enough's enough and not drown them. It just might be too much for them to handle that buried lie. Maybe they need a little more success. And that's what I think the best parents do. They really understand their child and how their child succeeds. And Nellie Corda's dad, I remember a story. He discovered that Nellie played best when she was pissed. Okay.
Okay.
So he would piss her off and he would rattle her up, and she started to play well. Now you can't do that with every kid.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to figure out what is the right thing that's going to, you know, make my child push through, get a little better without drowning them.
Yeah, it's this fine line of constantly pushing, I guess, the threshold, while not going over it, of helping them to continue to grow by encountering just the right amount of challenging situation, I suppose, that they can handle, but not too much.
That's the magic of parenting.
Right there. Okay, so I want to get to the magic of parenting, because I know that you've got, some ideas on what separates a great parent and great golf parent from maybe a not so great golf parent. But before we go there, I want to maybe just touch on the physical aspect of junior golf for a second. Um, Maybe as a thought experiment, if I was to give you access to 100 junior golfers for an entire summer, from, let's just say, 11 to 15, and you got to just watch them, either playing in a tournament or on an actual golf course, or hitting balls in a driving range. And then at the end of the summer, I was like, okay, Cheryl, pick 10 of them that you think would have the best chance to go to the next level and the next level after that. What would you be looking at when it comes to on the physical side of like how they're hitting the ball, center of the club face, speed? What is it that you're actually looking on a physical side to kind of separate a child?
So you mean the technique side,
The
right?
technique side, yeah, or the physical side. It's something that's not necessarily the mental, like the grit side, which we've established, but more now on something that's either physically oriented.
Hey, golf is tricky because you have all sizes, all shapes. When it's so hard to predetermine who's going to win, but I will admit to most of the golfers now are bigger and stronger.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That PGA Tour looks a lot different now than it did 20 years ago. So you've got to be able to hit that ball 300 minimum. It's no more 270. So I would look for taller kids,
Yep.
very uh, eye hand coordination. They're able to curve the ball each way, right? Hit high, low shots, just have all the shots already.
Even at that age, so even from like the 11 to 15, being able to hit through the window that Tiger used to talk about, or like,
Yeah, definitely. Scotty Scheffler, when he showed up to Randy Smith when he was 12, he could hit every shot. He was like a mini pro already. I've got 9 and 10-year-old world champions that I coach. I can call the shot in the middle of their backswing, they can hit it. Okay, so that ability, the eye-hand coordination to control that club face, I'll take that any day. So as I was saying, I would lean towards the taller person, the well-rounded athlete, and somebody that also has that ability to turn the finesse switch on.
What do you mean by that?
Okay. The finesse switch, just being able to hit soft, floaty shots, you know, especially around the greens. I would be looking very carefully at speed control on the greens. If they're good at that age, they're going to be great when they're a pro. That's what I find most kids struggle with.
So what I'm hearing then is, aside from the physical stature, which again is out of the control of the child, but like sounds like swing speed, the ability to actually generate like speed and force and hit it a long way, regardless of how tall they may be.
Yeah.
The club face control to be able to hit different shots. So really, the high draw, low draw, straight shot, all of that as much as possible, and then having that finesse, that ability to hit it high and stop the ball, and then around the greens. What I'm hearing is the speed control aspect. So like leg putts, I guess chipping it. Like, what is there something else?
Oh yeah, just being able to control that wedge around the green. I mean, Jordan Spieth by the age of 12 was he had that sand wedge like a Swiss Army knife. He could hit every single shot with that one club. So it's the imagination and the creativity, because at this young of an age, the more experience they have of hitting all these shots, you're just building that computer up, right? So they're only just going to get better and better. I remember Phil Mickelson, his dad, I think, built a putting green in his backyard. He used to hit flop shots over the house. So, and he was doing that at a very young age. So,
Okay, so here's a tough question, but why not? It's a podcast of trying to get the best answers. How would you then? So let's focus on that. Maybe that 11 to 15-year-old who we're now kind of focusing in a little bit more on golf and really trying to get them to be as good as possible. How would you set up like a typical week then for them? Would you have them playing a tournament at the end of the week? Would you have them doing 90% of their time on short game? Would you have them like what would be an ideal breakdown? Maybe let's give it a 2-week period. Would you have them playing a lot of golf, 9 holes, 18 holes, tournaments, a lot of practice, a lot of random practice, block practice? What's kind of your take on how to just get the most out of every week?
I'd say that age, you're looking at 40%. I'm thinking more of a year, but 40% of their time should be competing. Seems like a lot, but I really think that's critical at that age. They need to be playing more golf at that age and gaining the experience than beating balls. So I would probably I would say 2 hours a day of practice for that age group. And then it would go up to like 4 to 6 when they're about 16. So unfortunately, I see kids that are out there for like 5 hours at that age. It's a little much.
And 40% of their time, Cheryl, for tournaments, can you give a number to that? Is that like how many tournaments would that be in a year, do you think?
Take maybe a month off for and I'm thinking of Florida.
Sure.
So Florida is very different because it's a 12-month season.
Yeah.
Right. So that's close to, I don't know, maybe 20, just a little under 20 tournaments if they're very competitive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about a little bit younger then? So for the audience that maybe has younger kids in that, 5 to 10 year range that they're trying to get them into tournaments so that they, like in my mind, I'm trying to think of exposure therapy where it's like if it becomes a normalized thing to be in competition and it's not such a big deal at that age, but it's not, they're getting used to it. How many tournaments would you suggest? And again, we're not going to hold this to you, but just a general idea of how it would change for the younger kids.
See, I think it depends on the kid again. I have a couple of girls that play close to I'm talking 8 and 9, they play close to 50 tournaments a year.
Wow. And do you think that's too much, or
Now,
is that
they're homeschooled,
yeah?
okay? And they love it. I keep checking in with them, but they love it. They're ignited about competing. So let them go. I'm not a big tournament fan at that young of an age. I'd rather they just play golf and play with other kids and learn to score. But a lot of kids do enjoy that competition, and it can turn into like a fun vacation for families. So
Mm-hmm.
as long as everybody's having fun, that's great.
And are you seeing as a rule that those kids that are in tournaments earlier seem to develop a little bit more of that, for lack of a better word, like that killer instinct in tournaments later in life as well? Or is it, or do you see any sort of correlation between, I mean, your suggestion is just to learn how to score at that age. Do you see any
Mhm.
benefit to playing those kind of tournaments earlier? Because I know a lot of parents out there are, I'm hearing that more and more in the podcast, and a lot of the golf professionals or coaches are like, yeah, these kids are just playing too much golf, that they like too many
Yeah,
tournaments.
I don't really think they should play tournaments unless they can break 80. Yeah, maturity wise, you really got to be able to break 80 to enjoy playing
Yeah.
in tournaments. Tournaments are hot. I mean, down here in Florida, these kids are playing in 90-degree plus heat. Okay. And
Yeah, and golf is
you
hard
got to
enough.
really work hard to do that. And I just think of people like Jack Nicklaus. He started golf at age 10. Um, he just gradually, and he only had a 6-month season. So it, he liked having that break and that time off. So again, it comes down to knowing your child, um, and trying to work out a plan for the year that they want to do and that you think will help them to get better that year. You're just trying to get a little better each year. That's what I tell people. And you do that slow and steady, and you're going to win the race.
Now, very well said. So it sounds like a lot of this onus is on us as parents as to how to manage this properly. What have you seen separates now a great golf parent from a not so great golf parent? What are some of the common pitfalls? What have you seen that seems to really work, if you were to categorize a golf parent?
I think number one is support, right? The parent is going to be there to support their kid no matter what. Just thinking of the current golfers now, but Scotty Scheffler, I mean, the kid wanted to hit golf balls, and the dad found a college campus for the kid to hit golf balls on. He put his lights on at night. The kid's hitting balls way more than I would have wanted him to, but he was ignited. And the cops came and tried to stop them from hitting. And the dad said, "Hey, watch this kid hit a ball." And they're like, "Wow." And they just let him keep hitting at that campus. And then they moved to Texas. The dad became uh, pretty much the parent that stayed home all the time, and the mom worked. So it was a little different relationship there than what we're used to, but it worked for the family. And I think his parents never really looked at him as a golfer, even though they supported this you know craft that he had. They looked at him as raising a nice young man who's going to be well educated, and faith is very important to them, and that's what they nurtured in him, which has seemed to help him a ton this year.
Right? It's
Being thrown in jail and having a kid, and to see how he's handled it all, it's been pretty remarkable. I think great parents know their boundaries. I don't like it when caddies of kids will say, "We had a birdie," or "We had a bogey on this hole." No, you didn't have it. Your child had it, right? So you got to make those boundaries very clear and defined. I think great parents believe in their child, like Tiger Woods' dad, Earl Woods, believed in him. I mean, they took a second mortgage out on their house. That's how much they believed in that kid. Alexa Pano, her dad, pretty much, he's her caddy, he's her coach, he's her best friend. She won a tour event at age 19. So everybody's a little different. I think great parents know when to step aside too. Like Alexa Pano, her dad helps her. The relationship's good. But Xander Schauffele, his dad was coaching him all along until maybe a year or two ago when Chris Como came and took over the reins. And his dad saw how he needed to move aside. So I think that's an important step. Some of the worst parenting I've seen, they're too result driven, right? They're so focused on the score all the time rather than, again, the process, right? The good shots are going to come. I remember Randy Smith asking Scotty Scheffler, hey, do you want to play well now when you're 12 or do you want to play well when you're 16? And Scotty's like, well, 16. Yeah, well, that's how parents have to look at it too. So it doesn't really matter if Joey shot a 50 today in the U.S. Kids tournament. We're still going to love Joey. His golf score is not him. So very important. I think good parents keep it fun. I've got a great girl, Maddie Dickerson. She's won the world championship 2 years in a row. Her dad is amazing with her. I see them practice almost every day, and he keeps it fun. I saw him turn around, and she tried to chip the ball in between his legs, right? And they giggle. That's just great parenting. Keep it fun. Ask open-ended questions. Great parents ask, not how did you play today? Bad. They ask open-ended questions, get the child to talk, and the parents really listen to the child rather than parents often speak for their child. I've had a lot of lessons where the parents are doing all the talking and the child's just, So that child's not really getting that experience of self-autonomy, if that's the right way to put it, problem solving, just standing up for themselves.
Yeah, all fantastic. You touched on a little bit of how to look at, we've talked about a growth mindset. We've talked about not necessarily being results driven. Very often, there's a disappointing aspect to golf because it is, you're often missing it more than you're hitting it exactly the way you want it to. So how have you seen is?
You said disappointment?
Yeah, well,
because I'm sorry, you just made me realize one more thing that bad parents do.
Awesome.
I don't want to say bad parents, but they show their disappointment, right? You can see they're just like, and it affects the kids so much when they do that. They feel like they're not pleasing their parents, and then they just start shutting down.
Of course.
So that's what we all want to avoid with our kids.
Okay, so then that leads perfectly to this question, which is like, how as a parent can we deal with disappointment so that we don't show it on the outside, and how can we convey or teach our children to deal with any sort of disappointment, the ups and downs of a round of golf that they may be encountering?
Well, the parents need to understand the marbles.
I can't wait.
Okay, so Dr. Rick Jensen showed me these 20 years ago, and it maybe 30 years ago, and it changed my world. People have to understand that golf is very random, and that's what these marbles will do. So there's 100 marbles in here, and 25 are gold. They represent a gold medal shot, right? Everybody's going to hit a great shot. 25 are the black marbles. They represent a bad shot, and 50% are white marbles. Those represent our average shots. So Tiger's marbles are a different breed than my marbles, and a different breed than a newer golfer's marbles, right? We all have these three marbles. So if I'm standing on the first hole of a U.S. Kids, maybe World Championship, can you tell me what color marble I'm going to pull?
I have no idea. And for those that are listening just to the podcast, Cheryl's got basically a jar filled with these marbles of three different colors.
Yes. We have no idea. We have a good idea. It might be a white one because 50% are white, but a black one might come out. How do we deal with it? Right? So the parents have to just stay calm, stay positive. Self-positive talk for both parent and player is important. What we can control and what parents can do to help their kids understand, they're in control of their process, their routines, their self-talk. You're not that much in control of the outcome. You could, I mean, hey, Scotty Scheffler hit a shank last week. So he pulled a black marble. It's just how it is. Now let's see what I pulled. I got a white one. So I hit an average shot off the tee, right? So my average shot would be in the middle of the fairway, just a little short. Somebody else's average shot might be in the rough, right? And so the second shot, let's see what we get here. Pulled a black one. Okay, so how do we handle the bad shot? I pulled it left into the bunker. Some parents start getting worried and concerned at this point. It's only the second shot of the tournament, right? So I think the earlier they can understand, it's just a black marble. You've got your gold ones in there, they're going to come out. But if either person in this caddy and player unit starts worrying or panicking, the other one needs to support them. And if that one isn't supportive, then it's all downhill. So it's just understanding there's a lot of randomness in golf, and you've got to stay the course, stay positive, enjoy the process.
I love that visual where it's like, it really is a certain amount of, once you hit the shot, you let go of the outcome, and then you're just basically, you're not attached to the outcome that's going to happen. And seeing those different marbles and seeing those different colors to be like, okay, so I pulled a black marble right now. That's all right. That just means that I've got a better chance of pulling a gold or a white marble the next time. And it's easier said than done. That's for sure. But I love that visual where you realize that it's like, as you said, you disassociate almost from the outcome, where it's like, it's not your fault. It's not that I'm a black marble. It's the fact that I just randomly pulled a black marble for this one, and I shanked it, like you said with Scotty. Or it's almost, I don't know. It's healthy to disassociate yourself from the outcome. It certainly seems to be a theme.
My boss, Mike Bender, has coached Zach Johnson his entire professional career. And I remember Zach was playing against Tiger in a playoff, and Zach, I forget, he hit it in the water, and he laughed. He just laughed. He said, you know what? He didn't look frustrated at all. He just kind of laughed it off, and he dropped his ball, and he knocked the next shot in the hole. And he went on to win that tournament. So the most important shot in golf is the next one, right? It really is. That's all that matters. And the most important person that you play against is old man par. We cannot compare ourselves to the other kids. That's where it gets dicey for parents. Well, this kid did this. It doesn't matter. All that matters is you're on this journey with your kid, and you're trying to help them get a little better with their game.
Cheryl, any last parting wisdom for those parents that are listening right now, are just trying to do the best job that they can?
I think everyone's intentions are great, and don't be afraid to ask for help. There's so many great coaches out there. I bet if you just called them, I've been on the phone with many parents myself, and I've never worked with their kids. I'm happy to give my 2 cents. There's some great books for junior golf out there. Henry Brunton's written a couple. I would highly recommend. And yeah, enjoy. The time goes by so quick. So enjoy the time with your kids. And I guess that's it.
That's enough. Cheryl, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ryan. Enjoyed it very much. Thanks for having me.